My name is Arya, I'm 14, and I used to think my journal was the one place in the world where I could be safe. Then one night, I came home and found it wide open on the kitchen table, every page turned, my handwriting exposed like a wound, and there he was, my stepdad, the person who acted like he was helping raise me, reading every word like it was his right. He didn't even look ashamed, he just smirked and said, "Guess I know the real you now. And trust me, no one's gonna believe this side of you." Something inside me cracked, not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet, sharp click like a lock turning the other way, and that's when I decided, if he thought he knew me, he was about to learn something he'd never forget. I used to think my room was the only part of the house that belonged to me. 4 walls, a bed pushed against the corner, a little desk that groaned under stacks of notebooks and half-sharpened pencils. My journal sat there like something holy, its cheap blue cover peeling at the edges, but inside was every thought I didn't dare say out loud. I wrote about everything, the girl in math class who smiled at me once, the way my mom's perfume clung to my sweater after she hugged me goodbye, and the shadow of a man who wasn't my dad filling the doorway too often. That night, I could hear the house breathing, the refrigerator's hum, the faint tapping of my little brother's video game down the hall. My stepdad's footsteps were heavier. Always heavier. But I told myself, he doesn't care what I write. Adults didn't care about kids' scribbles, right? At dinner, he asked me something strange, "Who's Maya?" His voice was casual, but his eyes weren't. My fork froze. "She's just a friend," I said, but my stomach tightened. Maya's name was in my journal, in a poem no one was supposed to read. He smiled. It wasn't warm. "Sounds like more than a friend." Mom didn't notice, she was already scrolling through work emails. My brother laughed like it was a joke, and I forced a laugh too, but my skin burned. Back in my room, I touched the journal's spine like checking a wound. Had I left it out? No, I always slid it under my pillow. I pressed it there, just to feel its weight. Safe? Mine? The next morning, I woke to find the pillow light. My heart slammed as I yanked the sheets. The journal was there, but it wasn't tucked the way I'd left it, it lay tilted, a corner bent like a finger pointing at me. All day at school, my mind spun. Every locker slam sounded like an accusation. Every laugh in the hallway could have been about me. By 7th period, my hands smelled like ink from doodling on my desk just to calm down. That night, he stood in the doorway while I pretended to do homework. "You write a lot," he said. "Yeah," I answered, not looking up. "You should be careful what you put in there. Paper doesn't keep secrets." Something inside me went cold. He walked away, humming like nothing happened, but the words hung there. When I crawled into bed, I pressed the journal so hard against my chest it hurt. For the first time, I thought about hiding it somewhere he'd never look, maybe in my backpack, maybe outside. But a stubborn thought flickered, why should I have to hide? I stared at the ceiling until my eyes blurred, trying to believe those words were still mine. It was weird coming home early. The air outside was still gold with the last bit of sun, and the neighborhood was quieter than usual, no basketball thuds, no barking dogs. My backpack felt too heavy for a half day. I remember thinking maybe I'd get an hour of peace before the noise of dinner. But the house wasn't empty, the door clicked open, and there he was. My stepdad. Sitting on the couch like he owned every corner of it. The TV was off. The blinds were drawn. And in his hands, my journal. Blue cover bent back like a snapped wing, pages fanned open as if the spine had been forced. I stopped breathing. For a second I thought maybe it wasn't mine, maybe I was dreaming, maybe I'd wake up in math class. But then I saw the ink smudge on the corner, the one from the time my pen exploded. My words. My handwriting. My life. He didn't flinch when I walked in. Just lifted his eyes slow, like he'd been expecting me. "You write a lot for someone your age," he said. The calmness was worse than yelling. I stood there, frozen by the door. "That's private." My voice was too thin, too small, like it didn't even belong to me. He didn't close it. He didn't apologize. Instead, he flipped a page. I heard the paper crack. "Why keep secrets in your own house?" My palms were sweating. Every line I'd written felt like it was screaming at me. The doodle of a girl's face. The poem about wanting to run away. The line I wrote about him once, the one that said he watched too much. Was he on that page? Did he see it? I swallowed hard, trying to make my voice steady. Please give it back. He leaned back on the couch, journal resting on his knee, like a judge waiting for someone to confess. Your mom's at work. I'm the one taking care of things here. Don't you think it's my job to know what's going on? My chest burned. Job to know. No, it wasn't. He wasn't my father. He wasn't even close. But saying that felt like stepping off a cliff, so I stayed quiet. For a moment, I imagined grabbing it, just running. My muscles twitched like they wanted to move, but my legs wouldn't listen. Then he read a line out loud. Just a piece of it. My own words, broken free of my mind and now hanging in the air. Sometimes I wish the door would stay closed. He looked up again, something sharp in his smile. What does that mean? My throat went dry. I shook my head. It's nothing, it's something, he said. He closed the book, but his thumb kept it marked, like he owned that sentence now. If you think you can hide things in this house, you're wrong. He stood, walked past me, and left the journal on the coffee table. Open, like a wound. I didn't touch it right away. I just stared at it, my heart pounding so loud I couldn't hear the refrigerator hum anymore. The room felt smaller, like the walls were leaning in. When I finally moved, I didn't pick it up gently. I clutched it like it could disappear, pressed it to my chest so hard it bent more. I wanted to scream, but all that came out was silence. By morning, my stomach was already a knot. At school, everything was too loud. Lockers slammed like gunshots, sneakers squeaked like alarms, and I couldn't make my hands stop trembling. My friends laughed about something, some dumb meme, and I laughed too, even though it came out sharp and fake. Inside, my brain kept replaying the blue cover bent open in his hands. In math, I dropped my pencil twice. In history, I couldn't answer a question I knew cold. My teacher's brow furrowed like I'd disappointed her. Maybe I had. Maybe I was just disappointing everyone. Every tick of the clock felt heavier, like time was dragging me somewhere I didn't want to go. But dinner was worse. We were halfway through spaghetti when it started. My stepdad twirled his fork slow, his eyes landing on me like a spotlight. Arya's a writer, he said suddenly, smiling at my mom. She's got a lot going on in that little head. My mom lit up. I know. She's always scribbling. He leaned back, casual, but I saw the flicker of something. Some pretty deep stuff. Like how the house feels too quiet sometimes. I froze mid-bite. Sauce burned the roof of my mouth, but I didn't flinch. My younger brother laughed, oblivious. She's dramatic, he said, like it was a joke. Guess that's what journals are for, my stepdad added, his tone soft, but the edges were sharp. His words weren't for the table, they were for me. A warning wrapped like a compliment. My mom reached over, touching my wrist. Sweetheart, it's good you write. Don't be embarrassed. I shook my head too fast. I'm not. But I was. I wanted to crawl under the table. The walls felt thinner, like they could listen to. Later, when my mom was rinsing dishes, I followed her. My voice came out small. Mom, can you tell him to not read my stuff? She paused, the plate in her hand dripping water. What do you mean? He read my journal. He knows things. She frowned, not angry, just tired. Arya, he's trying to be involved. He cares. You should be grateful. Grateful? The word hit like cold water. She went back to the dishes, and I just stood there, the hum of the faucet louder than my own breath. When I turned, he was in the doorway, drying his hands with a towel, watching. No smile this time. Just watching. The rest of the night, I kept my door cracked but my ears open. Every floorboard creak felt like footsteps coming closer. I buried my journal under my pillow, then under my bed, then finally stuffed it in a shoebox and slid it into the back of my closet. But when I crawled into bed, my skin still prickled. It was like hiding a flashlight under a blanket, you could still feel the glow. I woke up feeling wired, like my skin was buzzing. My journal lay on my desk, closed tight. Last night I planted something, just a test. A fake entry about skipping school, about a crush on some kid named Eli. None of it real, but written like it was. If he read it, I'd know. By breakfast, the kitchen was too bright. The smell of burnt toast, the drone of the coffee maker. My mom rushed around, heels clicking like a timer. My stepdad leaned against the counter, mug in hand, that easy half smile he always wore like it belonged to him. "So, Eli, huh?" he said, casual, just loud enough for me to hear. My spoon froze midair. My heart spiked. "Who's Eli?" my brother asked, grinning like he'd stumbled on buried treasure. I swallowed. "Nobody. Just, nobody," but my stepdad's smirk deepened. "Funny," sounded like more than nobody. He sipped his coffee, eyes not leaving mine. Mom didn't notice. "Come on, guys, let's go," she said, already halfway out the door. The moment passed, but not for me. My face stayed hot. The test worked. He read it. Again, at school, the noise was too much, bells ringing, kids laughing, sneakers squealing down polished halls. But it was a comment at lunch that tightened the coil in my chest. "Eli." My friend Maya tilted her head. "Who's that?" "Someone said you like him." I stared. The world blurred for a second. My words came out flat. "What? Who told you that?" She shrugged. "Heard it in homeroom. Maybe Kyle." "I don't know." I laughed, sharp and thin, but inside something cracked. How could anyone know? Unless, the idea made my stomach turn cold. Was he saying things? Little hints dropped like crumbs? My secrets weren't safe, they were ammunition. I didn't eat. My tray stayed full while everyone else talked and laughed. Their voices were like static. I kept seeing his smile, the one from breakfast. Like he was playing a game only he knew the rules too. When I got home, the house felt different. Quieter, but not empty. His shoes were by the door. He was here. I went straight to my room and sat on my bed, staring at the journal like it was an enemy. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was something hotter. My fingers tapped the cover, then gripped it. If he wanted to know me so bad, maybe I'd start leaving things for him. Words that weren't true. Words that could trip him. The thought scared me, and thrilled me. That night, I opened the journal and started to write again. But this time, every word was a choice. It started with the sound of my mom's keys hitting the counter, sharp and careless. I'd been waiting for her, stomach tight, the words rehearsed so many times they tasted like metal. My journal was hidden under my arm like a shield. "Mom, can I talk to you?" My voice came out smaller than I wanted. She kicked off her shoes, sighed. Quickly, "Arya, I'm exhausted," I told her. Not all at once, halting, like stepping on stones across a river. I said he read things that weren't his. Things private. I said it wasn't okay. My chest burned with every word. She frowned, but not at the right thing. "Honey, you're making this bigger than it is. He's just looking out for you." "No. He's reading everything, Mom. Every page." My voice cracked. "It's mine. It's supposed to be mine." She rubbed her forehead. "Arya, you can be dramatic sometimes. He's your stepdad. He cares. Stop acting like the world's against you." The words hit harder than I expected. Dramatic. Acting? My throat closed up, I swallowed everything else. The anger. The panic. The part of me that wanted to scream. Instead, I nodded like I agreed, like maybe I'd imagined it. She didn't see the way my hands shook. That night, dinner felt wrong. The TV hummed from the living room, my stepdad's laugh spilling over it. I barely touched my food. My little brother chattered about school, and Mom smiled like nothing was broken. I kept quiet, each bite like sand. At school, I drifted. Hallways blurred, voices muffled. Maya asked if I was okay. I said I was fine, too quickly. The lie sat heavy, but it kept me safe. My journal stayed buried at the bottom of my bag. But during last period, I pulled out a blank page and started sketching. Not words this time, symbols. Little traps only I would understand. A keyhole with no key. A birdcage snapped open. A figure with no face. The pencil moved faster than my thoughts. Each line was a thread pulling me tighter, but also holding me up. At home, the journal went back on my desk, but now it wasn't just a diary. It was a stage. Each page a mask. If he wanted to read, fine. I'd give him something to read. Something false. Something that turned his curiosity into a leash. Later, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling. My mom's words echoed, sharp and hollow, dramatic. Maybe I was. Maybe that was the only way to survive here, louder, sharper, smarter than they expected. I stopped waiting for anyone to believe me, belief was a luxury. Now, I would make them see. By the time I finished the fake entry, my hand hurt. The pen left a dent in my finger, a thin crescent that stayed when I pressed my thumb to it. I stared at the page like it was a dare. One perfect little lie. Something harmless but dangerous enough, skipping the last period, sneaking into the storage room, a broken lock. It looked true. It felt true. And that was the point. I slid the journal half under my pillow, obvious enough for him to notice. My heart beat too fast for someone who was supposed to be calm. The next morning smelled like burnt toast. He was at the table, scrolling on his phone, coffee mug steaming. I didn't look at him. Didn't need to. His eyes followed me anyway. School felt slow and loud. Hallways pulsed with sneaker squeaks and locker slams. By third period, I'd almost convinced myself I'd get away with it, that maybe he wouldn't take the bait. But when the announcement came, Arya, report to the main office, my stomach dropped so hard I nearly laughed. The secretary didn't smile. She waved me toward the guidance counselor's room. Inside, Mr. Thomas sat stiff behind his desk. Arya, he said, voice clipped, we need to talk about what happened yesterday. What happened yesterday? My voice came out light, almost joking, but my palms were wet. He held up a sheet of paper. My handwriting stared back at me. Breaking into the supply closet is a serious issue. Someone came forward with information. I swear I felt my ears heat. The room shrank. I could see the corner of the window, a patch of blue sky, and all I wanted was to climb out of it. I didn't. I started, then stopped. This wasn't about proof. This was about him. About what he'd done with my words. Arya, Mr. Thomas said, softer now. We need to know the truth. Truth? The word stung. Truth was supposed to save you. Instead, it was a rope pulling tighter. By the time they let me go, the damage was done. A few curious faces had seen me leaving the office. Rumors travel fast in 8th grade. My friend Maya caught up to me at lunch, eyebrows raised. What was that? Nothing, I said, and smiled so she'd stop asking. But inside, something cracked. When I got home, the house smelled faintly of detergent. My journal sat on my desk, closed but not quite straight. My stepdad was in the living room, TV low, socks on the coffee table like he owned the place. I didn't speak. Didn't look at him. But when he glanced up, just for a second, there was something smug in it, like a tiny, private victory. That night, I opened a fresh notebook. The first page stayed blank for a long time. My pen hovered, not sure if this was a diary anymore or something else. Then I wrote the title across the top, for him. The next journal I bought wasn't for me, it was for him. The sound of the garage door groaning shut was my cue. The house always changed when Mom left, like someone dimmed the lights, even when it was still bright outside. The hum of the fridge seemed louder. The air heavier. But that day, I wasn't scared. I felt calm, almost steady, like I was walking on a balance beam. My journal, the real one, was zipped into the pocket of my backpack. The decoy sat under my pillow, its pages filled with nonsense and little traps. I flipped to a page marked with a bent corner. Science project cancelled. Bored? Might sneak out after dinner. A lie so thin it might as well glow. When I heard his steps in the hallway, I didn't freeze this time. I kept my pen moving, my back to the door. You always writing. His voice came from the doorway, too casual, like a fisherman tossing out bait. I shrugged without looking up. It helps me think. There was a pause, too long, like he was studying me. Then his footsteps retreated. Later, in my room, I heard the softest scrape of wood. My pillow shifted just slightly when I came back from brushing my teeth. He'd looked. Of course he had. And that was exactly what I wanted. Every entry I wrote from then on was a message dressed as a diary. I wrote about fake fights with friends, phantom crushes, made up secrets that sounded just true enough. Each one was a net, waiting. Even my little brother noticed. One night, while I was scribbling on the floor, he sat cross-legged beside me. "Why are you writing so much? I thought you were mad at him." "I'm not mad," I said, and smiled like a secret. "I'm just paying attention." The truth was, I liked the silence now. I liked knowing something he didn't, that every time he thought he was winning, he was stepping onto a trapdoor I'd built. At school, I started noticing small things, who lingered near the office door, who looked away too quickly. But at home, everything was sharper. The sound of his keys, the way he cleared his throat before speaking, the moments he thought no one was listening. One night, I left a decoy entry open on my desk, just enough to be tempting. It said, "Mom thinks I'm the perfect daughter. If she knew about the stash in the garage, she'd flip." Nothing real. Nothing dangerous. But I could almost hear the gears turning when he read it. He wanted to control the story, but he couldn't if I kept changing the script. For the first time in months, the fear in my chest felt smaller than my curiosity. I smiled the first time he took the bait. By the time the clock hit 9:07, the house was sealed in that strange quiet only I noticed. My brother was asleep, the TV glow gone, and the hum of the dryer in the garage was just a low background heartbeat. My pulse matched it. The journal sat on my desk like bait. Not my real one, of course, that was tucked behind the vent cover in my closet, but this one was painted with truths bent into lies. The pages smelled faintly of ink, the lines smooth and unbroken, like a calm lake hiding sharp rocks underneath. Tonight, I wanted him to step in deep. I wrote slow, deliberate words on the last page. If she knew about the money, everything would change. Tomorrow. Midnight? Nothing specific, just enough to sound dangerous. I signed it with my usual scrawl, underlined it twice, then left the pen right there as if I'd walked away mid-thought. When I set the phone camera against a stack of textbooks, its tiny red light felt like an ally. I angled it toward the desk, adjusted the blinds to let the hallway glow spill across the paper, and waited. My hand shook once when I heard the garage door rattle open. I pressed them flat against my jeans until the skin burned. His footsteps were slower tonight, deliberate. I could picture his face, that casual half-smile he wore when he thought no one was paying attention. I stayed still, curled under my blanket, eyes wide but steady. The doorknob clicked, soft, practiced. I kept my breathing slow, even as the air thickened. He moved like a shadow. The soft creak of the desk chair, the rustle of pages. I could hear each flip, the sound slicing the silence like tiny blades. My heart pounded but I smiled into the darkness. He didn't know I was awake. He stopped at the last page. Long pause. A quiet shift of weight. Then, the faint scrape of his phone unlocking. "Got you." I didn't dare move. I only watched the dim sliver of his reflection in the mirror, shoulders tense, head tilted. When his camera shutter clicked, something inside me steadied. It was proof. Then came the whisper. Barely audible. "What are you up to, Arya?" The room held its breath. My throat went dry but I kept my mask, still, silent, small. After a long moment, he closed the journal, slid it back into place, and left. The sound of the door latch was a thread snapping loose. When the footsteps faded, I slipped out of bed, my legs like springs. I grabbed my phone. The recording light blinked at me like a tiny victory flag. Mom's car keys rattled in the bowl like a starting gun. I had been rehearsing this moment all day, replaying it in my head between math problems and lukewarm cafeteria fries. My hands were damp, even now, gripping my phone like it was the last piece of armor I had. The kitchen light was too bright. It made everything look sharp, the edge of the counter, the silver handle of the fridge, even my mom's tired face as she walked in. She dropped her bag inside, the sound of someone carrying a whole world. "Hey, kiddo," she said, voice soft but distracted. "Mom, I started, and my throat closed like it wanted me silent. My stepdad was in the living room, the TV muttering low. I could feel him there, like a shadow waiting. She turned, brows knitting. What's wrong? It took everything to make my fingers move. I opened the camera roll. There it was, last night, 9:13 p.m., his hands on my journal. My words in his phone. My private life in his pocket. I need you to see something, I whispered, and the sound barely made it past my lips. She stepped closer, her perfume catching in the air, that familiar scent that used to mean safety. I pressed play. The tiny video filled with the hush of our hallway, the click of my door, the unmistakable sight of him turning my pages like they were his to own. Her face changed fast, confusion, disbelief, then something like steel hardening. She looked at me, really looked. Arya? When did this? Last night. And probably before. I needed proof. My voice cracked. It's not just a journal, Mom. It's everything. My head. My heart. The sound of the TV cutting off made both of us freeze. His footsteps came closer, calm like he had nothing to hide. He entered, coffee mug in hand, wearing that same casual smile that had fooled us for months. What's going on? He asked. My mom turned the phone so he could see. The video played again, silent but loud. His smile faltered. Not much, just a twitch, but enough. I can explain, he started. No, my mom said. Just one word, low and firm, but it stopped him. I thought I would feel victorious. Instead, I felt my heart breaking and rebuilding at the same time. This wasn't about revenge, it was about being heard. My journal was never just paper, it was the one place I didn't have to be small. My mom didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. We'll talk about this. Not now. Arya, go to your room. For a second, I wanted to argue. I wanted to stay, to see it through. But her eyes were steady, and I realized this wasn't me hiding. This was me finally being seen. I walked away, phone warm in my hand, a strange calm replacing the panic. Behind me, his voice started, low, defensive, but it didn't matter. When you steal someone's words, you forget they can speak. Morning light felt different now, softer, like the world was finally willing to let me breathe. It slid across my desk, catching the corner of a new notebook, clean, uncreased, untouched. The old journal sat close beside it, its pages swollen from secrets and tears, but no longer dangerous. I didn't rush to school. I didn't hurry through breakfast. My mom had stayed home, she was at the kitchen table, fingers wrapped around her mug like it was something to hold on to. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time in weeks, they weren't clouded by doubt. Did you sleep? She asked. Yeah, I said, and it was almost true, the TV stayed off. His voice was gone. I didn't ask where he was, I didn't need to. Whatever came next was between them. This chapter wasn't about him anymore, it was about me. I sat across from her and opened my new notebook. The sound of the first page turning was louder than it should have been, like an announcement. My pen hovered. What are you writing? She asked, softer now. My rules, I said. For me, and I did. I wrote the first one in messy blue ink, no one gets to read unless I say so. The second one came fast, my voice is mine, even if it shakes. Halfway down the page, my hand started to tremble, but I didn't stop. I thought of all the times I stayed silent, let him flip my life like a borrowed library book, let myself believe my words were too small to matter. Not anymore. The kitchen clock ticked steady. My mom stayed quiet, letting me write, letting me own the air. Every now and then I felt her watching, not with pity but with something stronger, respect, maybe. Or pride. At school, things looked the same but didn't feel the same. The hallway noise, the slamming lockers, the blur of backpacks and sneakers, none of it touched me. People were laughing, gossiping, living. I kept my notebook close to my chest, the new one, not as a shield but as proof, my thoughts, my stories, my heart, all mine. At lunch, I opened it again. No hiding, no shame. I wrote about fear and how it used to own me. I wrote about secrets and how they rot when left in the dark. I wrote about the girl who thought she was small and the girl who was done pretending to be. Maybe no one else would read these words. Maybe one day they would. That didn't matter. What mattered was that every line belonged to me. The bell rang, sharp and final, but I didn't flinch. I closed the notebook slowly, almost tenderly, like it was a friend who'd waited too long to meet me. And this time, the last page belongs to me.